Dr. Una Park knelt beside the strange blue flowers that grew in the red soil of Kepler 442b. She pressed her scanner against the petals and watched the numbers dance on her screen. The flowers were beautiful, but they were also deadly. Their roots pulled poison from the ground and turned it into something sweet. Life always found a way to survive, even in the worst places. "Una, we need to move," Captain Daewon Kim called from behind her. His voice was tight with worry. "The sensors are picking up something big heading our way." She looked up from her work. The research ship New Sol sat on the hill behind them, its white hull bright against the orange sky. 3 other scientists worked near the ship, collecting samples and taking pictures. They had been on this planet for only 2 days, but they had already found more new life than they expected. "Just 5 more minutes," Una said. She had spent 3 years studying alien plants, and these flowers were the most interesting she had ever seen. "I think these might be the key to understanding how life works on poison worlds." Captain Daewon shook his head. "The readings are getting stronger. We need to leave now." Before Una could answer, the sky turned dark. She looked up and saw ships dropping through the clouds like black rain. They were not human ships. These were long and sharp, like knives made of metal and hate. Red lights blinked along their sides like angry eyes. "Vorthak ships," Captain Daewon whispered. His face went white. "Everyone back to the ship, now!" The team ran toward the New Sol, but they were too slow. The alien ships landed around them, kicking up clouds of red dust. Doors opened with a hiss, and creatures stepped out that looked like walking nightmares. They stood on 2 legs like humans, but their skin was dark green and covered in scales. Their heads were long and narrow, with yellow eyes that never blinked. Each one carried weapons that hummed with deadly energy. Una had seen pictures of the Vorthak in her training, but seeing them in person was different. They moved like hunters, smooth and fast. Their claws clicked against their weapons as they surrounded the human team. "Stay behind me," Captain Daewon said. He pulled out his sidearm, but Una knew it would not help. The Vorthak Empire controlled half the galaxy. They were soldiers, fighters, killers. The humans were just scientists with basic training and simple weapons. The largest Vorthak stepped forward. His scales were darker than the others, and scars crossed his face like white lines. When he spoke, his voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Humans," he said in broken human language. "You come to our space. You take our things. Now you pay." "This planet isn't claimed by anyone," Captain Daewon said, trying to keep his voice steady. "We're just doing research. We'll leave right now if you want." The Vorthak leader laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Too late for leaving. You are prizes now. The arena masters will pay good money for humans. The fight was over before it really began." The Vorthak moved like lightning, their weapons sending blue energy bolts that dropped the humans instantly. Una watched Captain Daewon fall, his weapons spinning away across the red ground. The other scientists cried out as the energy hit them, their bodies going limp. Una tried to run, but a Vorthak soldier was faster. His clawed hand grabbed her arm and lifted her off the ground like she weighed nothing. She kicked and fought, but it was like fighting a machine made of muscle and bone. "This one is small," the soldier said to his leader. "Why keep her?" The leader walked over and looked at Una with his yellow eyes. He tilted his head like a bird studying a bug. "Humans are rare. The arena crowds love rare things. She will make good sport." "Please," Una said. "We weren't doing anything wrong. We were just studying plants." "Plants do not matter," the leader said. Only strength matters. Only fighting matters. You will learn this in the crimson depths. They dragged her to their ship while she watched the new soul burn behind them. The flames turned the orange sky black with smoke. Captain Daywin and her friends lay still on the red ground, and Una knew they would never get up again. Inside the Vorthak ship, they threw her into a small cage. The walls were covered in scratches from other prisoners who had been there before. The air smelled like fear and pain. Una pressed her face against the bars and watched Kepler 442b get smaller and smaller through a small window until it was just another dot of light in the darkness. Hours passed, or maybe days. Time was hard to measure in the cage. Vorthak soldiers brought her water and strange food that tasted like metal. They looked at her like she was already dead, just a thing to be used and thrown away. On the third day, a different Vorthak came to see her. This one was smaller than the soldiers, with lighter scales and tools instead of weapons. He studied her through the bars and made notes on a glowing tablet. "Interesting," he said in perfect human language. "Very interesting indeed." "Who are you?" Una asked. "I am Scientist Vex. I study different species for the arena. I need to know how long you will survive, what will kill you, what will make the crowds cheer." He made more notes. "Humans are new to us. We have never had one in the arena before." "I'm a scientist too," Una said. "I study how life adapts to survive. Maybe we could work together instead of—" "You misunderstand," Vex interrupted. "You are not a scientist anymore. You are a specimen, a thing to be tested and used. The arena masters paid much for you. They want to see how you die." He walked away, leaving Una alone with her fear. But under the fear, something else was growing. Anger. The Vorthak had killed her friends, burned her ship, and taken her life away. They thought she was weak because she was small. They thought she would be easy to break. They were wrong. As the ship carried her toward the crimson depths, Una began to plan. She was a scientist, which meant she knew how to observe, learn, and adapt. The Vorthak wanted to see how she would die, but she would show them something different. She would show them how humans live. The cage was small, but her mind was not. She started by studying everything around her. The scratches on the walls told stories of fear and desperation. The food schedule showed her when the guards were busy. The sounds of the ship taught her about its systems and weaknesses. When the ship finally reached its destination, Una was ready. She had learned the first lesson of survival. Never stop thinking, never stop planning, and never give up hope. The Vorthak thought they had captured a prize, but they had made their first mistake. They had given her time to think. The crimson depths looked like a nightmare made real. Una stared through the transport window as they descended toward the massive structure built into the side of a dead moon. Red lights blinked like evil eyes across its surface, and huge towers reached up toward the black sky like claws trying to grab the stars. "Beautiful, is it not?" said the Vorthak guard next to her cage. "This is where legends are born and weaklings die. You should feel honored. Many creatures never get to see the depths before they are fed to the grinders." Una said nothing. She had learned that the Vorthak liked fear, so she gave them silence instead. But inside, her mind was working. She counted the towers, memorized the landing bays, and noted where the defensive weapons were placed. Even in this place of death, information was power. The transport landed with a crash that rattled her cage. More guards came to drag her out, their claws clicking on the metal. floor. They marched her through corridors that seemed to go on forever, past windows that looked down into vast pits filled with roaring sounds and flashing lights. The arena levels, one guard explained, sounding proud. 50 different fighting rings, each one designed for maximum death. The crowds love variety. They stopped at a heavy door marked with symbols that probably meant danger. The door opened with a grinding sound, and hot air rushed out that smelled like blood and fear. The guards pushed Yuna inside, and the door slammed shut behind her. She was in hell. The chamber was huge, carved out of the moon's rock and lit by glowing panels in the ceiling. Cages lined the walls, and each cage held something that wanted to kill her. In the nearest cage, a creature like a living crystal turned toward her, its faceted body catching the light. Each piece of its body was sharp enough to cut metal. Fresh. Meat! Something hissed from another cage. Yuna turned and saw a creature that looked like a giant octopus, but its tentacles were covered in spikes and its eyes glowed with intelligence, soft and weak. You will not last the day, little thing. In the largest cage, a pack of creatures that looked like wolves made of shadow paced back and forth. Their eyes were red, and steam came from their mouths with each breath. One of them looked at Yuna and laughed, a sound like breaking bones. "What are you supposed to be?" it asked. "Some kind of joke? The arena masters must be running out of real monsters." Yuna walked to an empty cage in the corner and sat down. She did not respond to the insults or threats. Instead, she watched and learned. The crystal creature moved in patterns that suggested it used vibration to sense its surroundings. The octopus thing was smart, but it kept scratching at the same spot on its cage, which meant it had found a weakness. The shadow wolves worked together, but one was clearly the leader while the others followed. "Not talking?" the octopus creature said. "Smart. Words are wasted here. Only strength matters in the depths." Hours passed. Guards brought food to each cage, and Yuna watched how they did it. The guards were careful with some creatures, but careless with others. They wore special gear when feeding the crystal creature, but used normal gloves for her. This told her something important. They did not see her as dangerous. That was their second mistake. The first test came on her second day. A Vorthak with fancy armor and glowing metals came to inspect the new arrivals. Behind him walked a creature that made Yuna's blood freeze. It looked almost human, but something was wrong with its eyes. They were too old, too knowing for its young face. "That one," the fancy Vorthak said, pointing at Yuna. "The human. Lord Kazak wants to see how long it takes to break her spirit. Put her in the small ring with something that will not kill her too quickly." The human-like creature stepped forward. "Overlord, if I may suggest—" "You may not, General Hayek. I know you have soft feelings for your birth species, but this is business. The crowds want fresh entertainment, and humans are rare enough to draw big bets." General Hayek nodded, but Yuna saw anger flash in his strange eyes. He was human, or had been once. Now he served the very creatures who killed her friends. She filed this information away for later use. They dragged her from the holding area to a smaller arena. The walls were dark metal, and sand covered the floor. Lights shined down from above, and she could hear voices cheering from seats she could not see. The arena was not empty. Something else was already there, waiting. It looked like a lizard the size of a horse, but its skin was covered in spikes, and its mouth had too many teeth. Its eyes fixed on her immediately, and it hissed with hunger. This was clearly a creature bred for killing. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings of all species," A voice boomed from speakers around the arena. Welcome to a special exhibition. Match. In the red corner, we have Spike, winner of 17 consecutive matches. In the blue corner, we have something new, a human female, species classification, unknown fighting ability. The crowd roared with excitement. Bets were being placed, and from what Yuna could hear, no one was betting on her. Begin! The voice shouted. Spike charged immediately, moving faster than something its size should be able to move. But Yuna was already gone, rolling to the side and coming up near the arena wall. The creature crashed into the metal where she had been standing, leaving dents in the thick barrier. Interesting, the announcer said. The human shows basic survival instincts. Yuna studied her opponent as it turned around. It was strong and fast, but it was also angry. Angry creatures made mistakes. She picked up a handful of sand and waited. Spike charged again, but this time Yuna was ready. She threw the sand at its eyes and rolled between its legs. As it stumbled and shook its head, she grabbed one of the loose spikes that had broken off. During its first charge, the crowd was getting excited. They had expected a quick kill, but the human was still alive after 2 attacks. For the next 10 minutes, Yuna played a deadly game of tag. She used the arena's features to her advantage, leading Spike into walls and barriers. She used sand to blind it, pieces of broken spike to distract it, and her small size to get into places where it could not follow, but running would not win the match. Eventually, she had to fight. When Spike charged for the 8th time, Yuna did not dodge. Instead, she ran straight at it, confusing the creature for just a moment. That moment was enough. She slid under its body and drove the broken spike up into its soft throat. Spike crashed to the ground, its blood turning the sand dark red. It thrashed for a few seconds, then went still. The arena fell silent. Then the crowd exploded with noise. They had never seen anything like it. A small, soft creature had killed something 3 times its size, using nothing but intelligence and determination. Incredible! The announcer shouted. The human has won her first match! What an upset! As they dragged her back to the holding area, the other creatures looked at her differently. The shadow wolves had stopped laughing. The crystal creature turned to track her movement. The octopus thing watched her with new respect. Well, it said as she passed its cage, perhaps you are not fresh meat after all. Perhaps you are something else entirely. General Hyuk was waiting when they put her back in her cage. He stood in the shadows where the guards could not see him clearly. That was impressive, he said quietly. But you have made yourself valuable now. That is dangerous in a place like this. Why do you care? Yuna asked. Because I remember what it was like to be human, before they changed me, before they made me into this. He touched his face, and Yuna saw that his skin had a strange texture, like it was not entirely natural anymore. What did they do to you? They made me better at serving them, faster, stronger, more loyal. But they could not change everything. Deep inside, I still remember home. He looked sad for a moment. Survive long enough, and maybe you will find a way out of here. But do not trust anyone. In the depths, even friends will kill you if the price is right. He left her alone with her thoughts. Around her, the other creatures had gone quiet. They were all thinking the same thing. The human was not what she appeared to be. She was small and soft, but she had killed Spike with her bare hands and a piece of broken bone. Tomorrow there would be another match, and another after that. But for the first time since her capture, Yuna felt something other than fear. She felt hope. She had proven that humans could adapt, could survive, could fight. The Vorthak thought they had bought entertainment, but they had made their third mistake. They had given her a chance to show what humans could do when their backs were against the wall. And this was only the beginning. 3 weeks had passed since Yuna's first victory, and the betting halls of the Crimson Depths buzzed with her name. The Terran Anomaly, they called her now. She had fought 12 matches and won them all, each victory more impossible than the last. Word was spreading through the galactic underworld. Crime bosses, arena owners, and wealthy collectors were traveling from distant systems just to see the human who refused to die. Overlord Kazak was making more money than he had in years, and his mood had improved considerably. But Yuna was not thinking about money or fame. She was thinking about patterns. Every morning, she watched the guards feed the creatures. The Vorthak always approached the crystal creature's cage from the left side, never the right. This meant the right side had some kind of weakness or blind spot. The shadow wolves got their food through a slot, but the octopus creature was fed by hand through the bars. This meant the guards considered it less dangerous, which was interesting because Yuna had seen how fast its tentacles could move. "You are learning," the octopus creature said one day as she studied the feeding routine. It had told her its name was Keth, though she was not sure if that was really its name or just a sound it made. "Most creatures here only think about fighting. You think about everything." "What do you mean?" Yuna asked, though she suspected she already knew. "You watch the guards like a hunter watches prey. You count their steps, memorize their habits, note their weaknesses. Most fighters focus on their opponents. You focus on the system itself." Keth was right. Yuna had been studying more than just the creatures she fought. She had been studying the arena, the guards, the routines, the weaknesses in the system that kept them all trapped. But she was also studying something else, the other prisoners. The shadow wolves were called Fenrir hounds, and they came from a world where pack hunting was everything, but they had been captured separately and put together by chance. They worked as a team now, but it was forced cooperation, not natural bonding. Their leader, who called himself Grim, was strong but not particularly smart. He relied on fear to control the others. The crystal creature, which the guards called Shard Beast, was actually quite peaceful when not being forced to fight. It spent most of its time creating small vibration patterns in its cage, almost like it was singing to itself. Yuna realized it was probably lonely, maybe even depressed, and Keth, despite his dangerous appearance, was the most intelligent creature in the holding area. He had been here longer than anyone else, nearly 2 years, and he knew secrets about the Crimson Depths that others did not. "How many ways are there out of this level?" Yuna asked him one day. "For fighters?" "1. Through the main arena to freedom or death. But there are other ways for those who know where to look." Keth's eyes glowed brighter. "Why do you ask?" "Just curious. Curiosity is dangerous here. Overlord Kazak does not like creatures who think too much. Then it's good that he thinks I'm just a lucky fighter." Keth laughed, a sound like water bubbling through rocks. "Lucky? My dear human, luck does not win 13 consecutive matches against creatures designed for killing. You have done something far more impressive than luck. You have adapted." He was right. Each fight had taught Yuna something new about combat, about alien biology, about using the environment as a weapon. But more importantly, each fight had taught her about herself. In her 14th match, she faced 3 opponents at once, spider-like creatures with poison stings and razor-sharp legs. The crowd expected it to be her first defeat. Instead, she used the creatures' aggressive nature against them, causing them to attack each other while she stayed out of their way. When only one remained, weakened by fighting its own kind, she finished it with a piece of broken arena wall. In her 17th match, she fought something that looked like a living plant but moved like a snake. Its touch could dissolve metal, but Yuna noticed that it avoided the arena's heating vents. She led it on a chase around the ring until it accidentally touched one of the vents and dissolved itself. By her 20th match, the crowds were no longer betting against her. They were betting on how quickly she would win. This made Overlord Kazak happy, but it made the other arena masters worried. A predictable fighter was less entertaining than an unpredictable one. "They are talking about giving you harder opponents," General Hayek warned her one day. He had been visiting more often, always staying in the shadows where the regular guards could not see him clearly. Multiple opponents, environmental hazards, weapons for your enemies, but not for you. "Let them," Yuna said. "I'll adapt." That confidence could get you killed. Fear definitely will. General Hayek studied her with those strange eyes of his. "You have changed since you arrived here. You move differently, think differently. What happened to the frightened scientist I saw on that first day?" She learned to hunt. It was true. Somewhere between her 5th and 15th fights, something had shifted in Yuna's mind. She stopped thinking like prey and started thinking like a predator. The arena was not a cage anymore. It was a hunting ground. The creatures she fought were not monsters. They were just animals with different strengths and weaknesses. But the real change was happening outside the arena. The other creatures in the holding area had stopped seeing her as an oddity or a joke. Now they saw her as something else, a leader. It started small. When the guards brought food, Yuna began sharing hers with creatures who looked sick or injured. She did not make a big show of it. She just quietly pushed her rations through the bars to those who needed them more. When Grim, the Fenrir Hound leader, was injured in a particularly brutal match, and his pack began to turn on him, Yuna spoke up. "He's still your alpha," she told. "The other wolves." Injured does not mean weak. It means experienced. The wolves listened to her, which surprised everyone, including herself. When the shard beast began making distressed vibration patterns after a fight that nearly cracked its crystalline body, Yuna started humming. She did not know why, but something told her that the creature needed sound, needed to know it was not alone. Her humming seemed to calm it, and after a while it began creating harmony with her voice. "You are building something," Keth observed one evening. "These creatures respect you now. They trust you. That is unusual in a place like this." "I'm not building anything," Yuna said. "I'm just trying to survive." "No, my friend. Survival is staying alive from day to day. What you are doing is preparation. You are creating alliances, studying weaknesses, gathering information. You are preparing for war." Keth was right, though. Yuna had not thought of it that way. She was preparing for something, but she was not sure what. All she knew was that every day in this place taught her something new about fighting, about leadership, about what it meant to never give up. The night before her 25th match, something happened that changed everything. She was lying in her cage, going over what she knew about tomorrow's opponent, when she heard footsteps in the corridor. But these were not the heavy boots of Vorthak guards. These were softer, more careful. A figure appeared in the shadows between the cages. It was small and moved like it was trying not to be seen. When it came closer, Yuna saw that it was another human. "You're Yuna Park," the figure whispered. It was a young man, maybe 20 years old, with scars on his face and fear in his eyes. "I'm Jinwoo. I was captured 3 days ago. They're going to put me in the arena tomorrow." "Where did you come from?" Yuna asked. "Mining colony on Vega Prime. Pirates hit us, sold the survivors to the Vorthak. I'm the only one left." His voice shook. "I've heard about you. They say you can't be killed. They say you're not human anymore." "I'm still human," Yuna said. "But I've learned some things about surviving in this place." "Will you teach me?" Yuna looked at this scared young man and saw herself 3 weeks ago. Frightened, alone, convinced she was going to die. But she had not died. She had learned and grown and become something the arena masters never expected. "I'll do better than teach you," she said. "I'll show you that humans don't have to fight alone." For the first time since her capture, Yuna began to think beyond just surviving the next match. She began to think about winning not just fights, but the war itself. The Vorthak had made their biggest mistake yet. They had given her an army to lead. 53 matches. Yuna had won every single one, and the galaxy was starting to take notice. Ships arrived at the Crimson Depths daily, carrying wealthy aliens who wanted to see the legendary Terran fighter. The betting halls had stopped taking wagers against her survival and started offering odds on how many opponents she could defeat in a single match. But something was changing in the arena. Something that made even the bloodthirsty crowds nervous. Yuna was not just winning anymore. She was hunting. Her recent opponents lasted shorter and shorter amounts of time. Where once she had fought defensively, using cleverness and patience to find weaknesses, now she attacked with calculated precision. She had learned to read alien body language, to predict movements before they happened, to turn every environment into a weapon. "The crowds are getting restless," General Hayek warned her during one of his secret visits. "They came expecting to see you struggle, to see you barely survive. Instead, they're watching you systematically dismember creatures that used to be unbeatable champions." Yuna was sharpening a piece of metal she had salvaged from her last match. The motion was steady, practiced, almost meditation. "Is that a problem?" "For you?" "Maybe. Overlord Kazak is starting to worry that you're becoming too predictable. Predictable means boring, and boring means less money. Then he should give me more interesting opponents." General Hayek studied her with those unsettling eyes of his. "When did you become so cold?" Yuna paused in her sharpening. The question caught her off guard because she had not realized the change in herself. When was the last time she had thought about her old life? About the research ship New Soul, about Captain Daewon and her dead friends? When had survival become hunting, and when had hunting become what she was doing now? "I became what this place required me to become," she said finally. "And what is that?" "Effective." Young Jinwoo, who had been listening from the next cage, spoke up. "She's not cold. She's focused. You don't understand because you've been working with the Vorthak so long you've forgotten what humans are really capable of." General Hayek's face darkened. "I haven't forgotten anything. I remember exactly what they did to my colony, to my family, to me. That's why I'm trying to warn her. The Vorthak don't just kill things that threaten them. They study them first, learn from them, then find ways to make more of them. Let them try," Yuna said, returning to her sharpening. I'd like to meet another human who's been through what I've been through." The conversation was interrupted by the sound of heavy boots in the corridor. Guards were coming, more than usual. Overlord Kazak himself appeared, flanked by 6 armed Vorthak and what looked like a team of scientists. "Specimen 347, Kazak said, using Yuna's official designation. "You have a special match today. Our scientists have been working on something interesting." They dragged her to the main arena, the largest ring in the complex. The crowds were bigger than usual, packed into every seat. Alien nobility from across the galaxy pointed and chattered in dozens of languages as she was pushed into the fighting pit. But this arena was different. The floor was covered in a thick, sticky substance that made movement difficult. Acid pools bubbled in random locations, and the walls were lined with spikes that moved in and out in unpredictable patterns. This was not just a fighting ring. It was a death trap designed specifically for her. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all classifications," the announcer's voice boomed. "Today we present something special. The Terran anomaly faces her greatest challenge yet. 6 venom crawlers, enhanced with military-grade aggression stimulants. In our newly designed hazard arena." The crowd roared as 6 doors opened around the arena's edge. What came out made Yuna's blood run cold. The venom crawlers looked like centipedes the size of horses, but their bodies were covered in armor plates, and their mouths dripped with acid that hissed when it hit the floor. Worst of all, their eyes had a wild, unfocused look that meant they had been drugged into a killing frenzy. These were not creatures fighting for survival. These were weapons designed to kill her in the most spectacular way possible. The first crawler charged immediately, moving faster than something its size should be able to move. Yuna rolled to the side, but the sticky floor slowed her down. The creature's acid spray missed her face by inches, instead hitting one of the moving wall spikes and dissolving it completely. A second crawler attacked from behind while she was still recovering. She threw herself sideways into one of the acid pools, using the lip of the pit to swing around and avoid the creature's snapping jaws. The acid burned through her boots instantly, but she ignored the pain. "Interesting," the announcer called. "The human uses environmental hazards to her advantage." But there were 4 more crawlers, and they were learning from their packmates' attacks. They began to coordinate, surrounding her and cutting off her escape routes. The crowd was on its feet, sensing that this might finally be the match where the unbeatable human met her end. That was when something snapped inside Yuna. She had been fighting defensively, trying to survive, trying to outlast her opponents. But these creatures were not opponents. They were weapons pointed at her by aliens who had killed her friends, destroyed her ship, and turned her life into entertainment for the galaxy's worst people. She stopped running. The third crawler charged at her, jaws wide and acid flying. Instead of dodging, Yuna grabbed one of the dissolved wall spikes and drove it straight into the creature's mouth. The spike went through its brain and out the back of its skull, pinning it to the arena floor. The crowd went silent. The 4th and 5th crawlers attacked together, trying to catch her between them. Yuna grabbed the dying 3rd crawler and used its own acid-producing glands as a weapon, spraying the deadly liquid into the faces of its packmates. They screamed as their own weapon dissolved their eyes and mouths. The 6th crawler tried to retreat, its drug-enhanced aggression finally overcome by basic survival instinct. Yuna did not let it escape. She chased it down across the hazardous arena floor, moving through acid pools and dodging wall spikes with an efficiency that seemed impossible. When she caught it, she did not kill it quickly. Instead, she systematically destroyed its ability to fight back, breaking its legs one by one, removing its acid sacs, and finally crushing its skull with a piece of arena debris. The first and second crawlers, the ones that had started the attack, tried to work together for a final assault. But Yuna was no longer the defensive fighter they expected. She moved between them like a dancer, using their own attacks against each other, turning their coordination into confusion. When it was over, 6 venom crawlers lay dead around the arena. Yuna stood in the center, covered in acid burns and alien blood, holding a piece of dissolved armor plating like a trophy. The arena was completely silent. Even the announcer had stopped talking. For the first time in the history of the Crimson Depths, spectators were leaving their seats. Some were running for the exits. Others sat frozen in shock, staring at the small human who had just systematically destroyed 6 enhanced killing machines. In the VIP section, alien crime bosses whispered among themselves in worried tones. They had come to see entertainment, but what they had witnessed was something else entirely. They had seen a predator at work, something that killed not for survival, but for the pure efficiency of ending threats. "What have we created?" one of them asked. Overlord Kazak's face had gone pale. He was staring at his security monitors, watching replays of the match over and over. His scientists were taking notes frantically, but their hands were shaking. "Sir," one of them said, "the biometric readings are unusual." "What do you mean?" Her heart rate never elevated above normal during the entire fight. Her stress hormones actually decreased as the match went on. It's like she was becoming calmer as she killed them. As they dragged her back to the holding area, the other creatures looked at her with expressions she had never seen before. Not respect, not fear, but something closer to awe. Even Grim, the Fenrir Hound Pack leader, lowered his head as she passed. "What did you do out there?" Keth asked quietly. Yuna sat down in her cage and began cleaning alien blood from under her fingernails. "I stopped pretending to be prey." "You were magnificent," young Jinwoo whispered. "I've never seen anything like it." "Neither had they," General Hayek said from the shadows. He had been watching the match on a security monitor. "Yuna, what you did in there? That wasn't fighting. That was something else." "What was it then?" "That was what happens when you push a human too far. That was what my species becomes when we stop trying to be civilized." He paused. "That was why the Vorthak fear us, even though they pretend we're just another weak species to exploit." Yuna looked up at him. "They should fear us. We're persistence hunters from a death world. We're the species that survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that would have wiped out most other forms of life. We're not the strongest or the fastest, but we're the ones who never stop, never give up, never quit adapting until we win. And what happens when creatures like that get pushed past their breaking point?" Yuna smiled, and for the first time since her capture, it was not a human smile. It was something else, something that had been born in the arena and forged in alien blood. "They become monsters," she said, "but not the kind that destroy everything." 8 months. Yuna had been in the Crimson Depths for 8 months, and she had never lost a match. 127 consecutive victories. The number was carved into the wall above her cage, updated by guards who had long since stopped betting against her, but numbers did not tell the whole story. The arena had changed since her arrival, and not in ways that Overlord Kazak had expected. The other creatures no longer saw her as another prisoner. They saw her as their leader, the one who had shown them that survival was not enough, that it was possible to fight back. "The shipment of fresh meat arrives tomorrow," Keth whispered during the daily feeding. The octopus-like creature had become Yuna's primary source of information about the arena's operations. 12 new specimens from the Outer Rim raids. Kazak plans to feed them to you one by one to keep the crowds interested. Yuna did not respond immediately. She was watching the guards, counting their numbers, noting their routines. Over the months, she had memorized every pattern, every weakness, every small detail that might be useful. The guards thought she was just another trained animal now, valuable but contained. They had grown careless. "How many guards on the transport level?" she asked. 6 during normal operations. "But why do you—" Keth's tentacles curled in sudden understanding. "Oh my. You are not planning to escape, are you? You are planning something much more ambitious." Young Jinwoo, who had survived his first dozen matches thanks to Yuna's training, moved closer to the bars of his cage. "What's the plan?" "The plan is to remind the Vorthak that humans are not entertainment," Yuna said quietly. "The plan is to show them what happens when they push a persistence hunter too far." Around the holding area, dozens of alien creatures had gone silent. They were all listening now, waiting to hear what the human who had never lost a fight was planning to do. "Next, the ventilation system connects all levels," Grim said from the Fenrir hound cage. The wolf-like creature had become one of Yuna's most reliable allies after she saved his pack from execution. "My nose knows the paths. Air moves down from the guard stations, through the arena levels, into the depths where we are held. The main power grid runs through the lower tunnels," added Shard Beast, its crystalline voice ringing like broken glass. The creature had learned to communicate with the others through vibrations, and Yuna had learned to understand its harmonic language. "I can feel the electrical current through the rock. There are junction points where the entire system could be disrupted." Yuna nodded. Over the months, her fellow prisoners had become more than allies. They had become a team, each contributing their unique abilities and knowledge to a growing plan. They had learned to trust each other in ways that the arena masters never intended. "What about the transport bays?" she asked. 3 ships minimum at all times," Keth replied. "Usually more. The guards keep them fueled and ready for quick departures. Kazak is paranoid about being trapped here if there's ever a rebellion. Smart. Too bad it won't help him." The conversation was interrupted by approaching footsteps. Heavy boots, too, many of them. Yuna and the others went silent as a squad of guards appeared, led by Overlord Kazak himself. His scaled face was twisted with concern, and his eyes kept darting to Yuna's cage. "Specimen 347, he said, his voice lacking its usual confidence. "You have become problematic." "Have I?" Yuna asked. She did not stand up or show any sign of respect. After 8 months of victories, she had earned the right to remain seated. "The crowds are losing interest. Your matches have become too predictable. You kill everything we put against you, and you do it too efficiently. There is no drama, no suspense, no entertainment value." "That sounds like your problem, not mine." Kazak's claws extended slightly, a sign of barely controlled anger. "It becomes your problem when it affects my profits. Starting tomorrow, we implement new protocols. Enhanced opponents, multiple environmental hazards, weapons restrictions for you while your enemies are fully armed. Still sounds like your problem." "We are also implementing a new rule," Kazak continued. "For every match you win, one of your fellow specimens will be randomly selected for immediate execution. Let us see how predictable you become when other lives depend on your performance." The holding area went deadly silent. Every creature was watching Yuna now, waiting to see how she would react to this threat against her allies. Kazak smiled, thinking he had finally found leverage against the unbeatable human. He was wrong. "Interesting strategy," Yuna said calmly. "Tell me, Overlord, how many guards do you have on duty tonight?" "That is not your concern, Specimen." "Humor me. I'm curious about the numbers." 73 guards across all shifts and levels. More than enough to handle any problems that might arise. 73. Good to know. Yuna stood up slowly, her movements fluid and controlled. "One more question. When you threaten my pack, do you expect me to become more cooperative or less? Your pack? These are not your allies, Specimen. They are entertainment just like you. And you will—" He never finished the sentence. The lights went out. In the darkness, sounds erupted from every level of the Crimson Depths. Alarms blaring, guards shouting, energy weapons firing. But underneath it all was something else. The sound of cages opening, locks breaking, barriers falling. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting red shadows across the holding area. Kazak spun around to see that every cage was open. Every creature was free. And they were all looking at him with predatory hunger. "How?" he gasped. "You made a mistake," Yuna said, stepping out of her cage. "You gave me 8 months to study this place, to learn its weaknesses, to build relationships with creatures you thought were just animals. You forgot that humans are social hunters. We build packs." Shardbeast had used its ability to create precise vibrations to shatter the electronic locks on every cage simultaneously. The power outage was Jin Woo's doing. He had learned enough about the arena's systems during his maintenance duties to know exactly which circuits to overload. The ventilation system breach that allowed them to access other levels was courtesy of Grimm and his pack, who had spent weeks quietly clawing through air ducts during feeding times. "This is impossible," Kazak said, backing toward the exit. "The security systems, the barriers, the security systems were designed to keep individual prisoners contained," Keth said, his tentacles writhing with anticipation. "They were not designed to handle coordinated intelligence from multiple species working together. That was your mistake." Around the holding area, creatures were arming themselves with improvised weapons, broken pieces of cage metal, chunks of arena debris, anything that could kill. But they were not moving randomly or chaotically. They were organized, disciplined, following a plan that had been months in the making. "You wanted to see what happens when you threaten my pack," Yuna said to Kazak. "Now you get to find out." The breakout became a systematic hunt. Yuna's team did not simply try to escape. They moved through the Crimson Depths, level by level, eliminating guards, disabling security systems, and freeing every prisoner they could find. Creatures that had been enemies in the arena became allies in the corridors, united by their shared hatred of their captors. The Fenrir hounds used their tracking abilities to hunt down fleeing personnel through the facility's maze-like structure. Shardbeast's vibrations could shatter reinforced barriers and disable electronic equipment. Keth's intelligence and knowledge of the facility's layout made him the perfect tactical coordinator. Jinwoo and other humanoid prisoners could operate Vorthak technology and access computer systems, and Yuna moved through it all like a force of nature, more dangerous now than she had ever been in the arena. She was not fighting for entertainment anymore. She was not fighting for survival. She was fighting for justice, for revenge, for the right of every creature in this place to be free. General Hayek found her on the command level, standing over the bodies of 3 guards who had tried to activate the facility's self-destruct sequence. "You have to stop this," he said. "If you destroy the depths completely, you'll bring the entire Vorthak fleet down on this system. They'll hunt every one of you to the ends of the galaxy." "Let them come," Yuna replied. She was covered in alien blood, but none of it was hers. I'm tired of running, tired of being prey, tired of being entertainment. If they want to hunt me, they're welcome to try. This isn't just about you anymore. You're leading dozens of creatures. To their deaths? No. I'm leading them to their freedom. There's a difference. General Hayuk looked around at the devastation, at the fires burning through the facility, at the bodies of guards and administrators scattered throughout the corridors. What have you become? Yuna smiled, and her expression held no trace of the frightened scientist who had been captured 8 months ago. I've become what they made me. I've become the monster they locked in a cage. She paused, then added, the difference is, I'm not their monster anymore. I'm mine. By dawn, the Crimson Depths was a smoking ruin. Every guard was dead, every administrator was dead, every scientist and technician and betting hall operator was dead. The only survivor was Overlord Kazak, left alive but driven completely, mad by what he had witnessed. And in the debris of what had once been the galaxy's most notorious fighting arena, dozens of freed creatures prepared to scatter across the stars, carrying with. The news spread across the galaxy faster than hyperspace travel. The Crimson Depths, one of the most secure facilities in Vorthak space, had been completely destroyed. Not damaged, not breached, not compromised, annihilated. Every single member of its staff was dead, and hundreds of the galaxy's most dangerous creatures had vanished into the void. But the most disturbing part was not the destruction itself. It was what the only survivor kept saying. Overlord Kazak sat in a psychiatric facility on Vorthak Prime, rocking back and forth and repeating the same words over and over. She was the monster all along. We locked the monster in with us. She was the monster all along. Within weeks, the story had grown into legend. Criminal organizations across the galaxy whispered about the Terran Shadow, a human who had done the impossible. Military strategists studied the tactical brilliance of the breakout. Xenobiologists debated what evolutionary pressures could produce such a dangerous predator. But for those who dealt in the darker trades, slavery, illegal fighting, creature trafficking, the message was clear and terrifying. Never capture a human. General Hyuk had helped Yuna and her allies escape the Vorthak system, providing them with ships and supplies before disappearing himself. He had seen enough of what humans could become when pushed too far. He had no intention of being around when the Vorthak Empire tried to hunt her down. Yuna did not return to human space. Instead, she began doing something that no one expected. She began hunting. Her first target was a slave market on the edge of Syndicate space. The facility processed thousands of sentient beings every month, selling them to buyers across the galaxy. It was heavily defended, with private security forces and automated weapon systems. It lasted 6 hours against Yuna and the team she had assembled from her former fellow prisoners. The attack was surgical, precise, and absolutely ruthless. Security footage, recovered later by authorities, showed creatures working together with military coordination. Fenrir hounds disabled perimeter sensors, while Shard Beast's vibrations collapsed key structural supports. Keth provided tactical intelligence while Jinwoo operated captured security systems. And through it all, Yuna moved like death itself, eliminating threats with mechanical efficiency. When it was over, every slaver was dead. Every guard was dead. Every administrator and buyer and transport pilot was dead. But every slave was free, given ships and supplies to return to their homeworlds or find new lives among the stars. The pattern repeated across the galaxy. Illegal fighting arenas, creature trafficking networks, forced labor camps. They all fell to the same systematic hunting methodology. The attacks were always perfectly planned, always successful, and always ended the same way. The criminals, dead, their victims free, and no trace of the attackers except scattered stories about the human who had learned to hunt hunters. On the civilized worlds, governments and law enforcement agencies were baffled. They supported the results. These were criminal organizations that needed to be stopped, but they were terrified of the methods. How could a small team accomplish what entire military fleets had failed to achieve? On the criminal worlds, the answer was simpler. They stopped dealing with humans entirely. Word spread through the underworld that capturing humans brought nothing but death. Better to avoid them completely than risk attracting the attention of the Terran shadow. She has become a force of nature, observed Dr. Velix, a Cardonian xenopsychologist, who had been studying reports of the human's activities. This is not revenge or justice in any traditional sense. This is ecological correction. She is removing threats to her species and to other vulnerable beings with the same efficiency that a predator removes sick prey from a herd. The Vorthak Empire, meanwhile, was facing its own problems. The destruction of the Crimson Depths had cost them millions of credits in revenue and damaged their reputation as an unbeatable military force. Worse, other species were beginning to question Vorthak's superiority. If a single human could destroy their most secure facility, what else were they vulnerable to? Admiral Corax, commander of the Vorthak's Third Fleet, was given a simple mission: find the human and bring her back alive for study. The Empire needed to understand what had created such an effective killer so they could either replicate it or counter it. He assembled a task force of 12 warships and began hunting. It was the last mistake he ever made. The fleet found Yuna's ship 3 months later, orbiting a dead world in the neutral zone. It appeared to be alone, defenseless, easy prey for overwhelming military force. Admiral Corax ordered a full assault, intending to capture the ship intact. The battle lasted exactly 43 minutes. When it was over, 11 Vorthak warships were drifting debris, and the 12th was fleeing toward home space with its engines, damaged and half its crew dead. The surviving officers reported something impossible. The human ship had not been alone. Dozens of other vessels had been hiding in the system, crewed by the creatures she had freed from various illegal operations. They had used coordinated hit-and-run tactics, superior knowledge of the terrain, and what appeared to be military-grade weapons and equipment. But most disturbing of all, they had fought with a unity and purpose that the Vorthak had never seen in their enemies. Different species, different technologies, different combat doctrines, all working together under human leadership with perfect coordination. "It is not possible," Admiral Corax reported from his hospital bed. "No species can command such loyalty. From so many different creatures, no single leader can coordinate such complex military operations across multiple ship types and crew species." "And yet she did," replied Fleet Admiral Thrax, "which means we have seriously underestimated what humans are capable of." The failed military hunt had consequences beyond just the loss of ships. Word spread that even the mighty Vorthak Empire could not catch or kill the Terran shadow. Her legend grew, and with it, her effectiveness. Criminal organizations began abandoning operations at the first rumor of human involvement. Slave markets closed permanently rather than risk becoming her next target. Parents across the galaxy told their children stories about the human who lived in darkness so long she became it. Some stories painted her as a hero, freeing the innocent and protecting the helpless. Others described her as a monster, an unstoppable predator that hunted through the void between stars. Both versions were true. Yuna stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking out at the stars through the transparent aluminum viewport. Around her, creatures from dozens of worlds worked at control stations, maintained weapons systems, and planned their next operation. They were not just her crew anymore. They were her family, her pack, her chosen tribe of survivors who had decided to hunt those who preyed on the innocent. General Hyuk materialized beside her, his cybernetic modifications allowing him to move silently even in the ship's artificial gravity. The Syndicate has abandoned 3 more operations this week. Just rumors of human involvement were enough to make them shut down completely. Good, Yuna said. Fear is more efficient than force. Is that what you've become? A symbol of fear? I've become what the galaxy needed. Something that makes the monsters check under their beds at night. Hyuk studied her profile. She looked older than her years, marked by experiences that would have broken most beings. But there was something else in her expression, something that had not been there during her time in the arena. Peace. Do you ever think about going home? He asked. Where is home for someone like me? Earth wouldn't understand what I've become. Human space is too soft, too civilized. They would try to reform me, to make me back into the scientist I used to be. And you don't want that? Yuna smiled, and her expression held both warmth and predatory satisfaction. I am home, Hyuk. Out here, in the dark between stars hunting, the things that need to be hunted. This is what I was meant to become. She gestured at the view screen, where star charts showed the locations of their next 3 targets. A flesh market on Titan Station, a forced labor camp in the Epsilon sector, and an illegal medical experimentation facility that had been buying sentient subjects from pirates. The hunt continues, she said, and there are still so many monsters that need to learn what it means to be prey. Behind them, Keth worked at the tactical station, his tentacles moving across multiple control surfaces simultaneously. New intelligence? From our contacts in the core worlds, he reported. The hegemony is planning to establish a new gladiatorial complex on Zerion Prime. Construction begins next month. Then we have work to do, Yuna replied. As her ship turned toward its next target, carrying death to those who dealt in suffering, the galaxy's criminals huddled in their fortified compounds and told themselves that humans were just another weak species easy to exploit and control, but in the darkness between stars, something hunted them. Something that had once been prey, but had learned to become the most terrifying predator the galaxy had ever known, and she was just getting started. The legend of the Terran Shadow spread to every corner of known space, carried by freed slaves, and rescued victims who whispered her story with voices full of hope. She was proof that the monsters could be beaten, that the hunters could become the hunted, that even in the darkest places, the light could fight back. In the criminal underworld, mothers of all species began telling their children.